In this short series, we're going to look at the Christmas story from the book of Matthew. And in the first one, the first message, we look at the very beginning. In fact, a lot of folks assume that the Christmas story starts with the wise men, with the angels, with the shepherds, with the young Jesus. But in fact, it begins before then, when Mary, who is betrothed to Joseph, and in those days a betrothal was a legal commitment to get married, Mary suddenly becomes pregnant. And in that culture particularly, we can't think of our own because we're very different. In that culture particularly, a young unmarried mother was a real stigma. And so there was a crisis. And that's how the Christmas story, the greatest story known to man, the birth of Jesus, and of course he grew up, died on the cross, buried, dead, rose from the dead 3 days later, the greatest story known to man. But it all begins with a crisis where Joseph and Mary suddenly find themselves in this awful situation. And when you think about it, a lot of what comes good in the end comes out of a crisis. And a lot of things that we find ourselves in, situations on a daily basis, situations from time to time, where things aren't going right for us, they're crisis situations. They're situations whereby things aren't going very well for us at that particular time. That's exactly where Joseph and Mary found themselves in, with the consequences quite severe, particularly at that time, in that day and age. So they found themselves in a crisis. But if we're in a crisis, we can come through, as we see in the story. And how do we come through? Well, what do we notice from that particular passage in Matthew? That Joseph was a man of integrity. He was a man of honour. He was a righteous man. He didn't fly off into a rage. He didn't seek revenge, because remember, at that point, in his mind, he knew that he hadn't slept with Mary. So if she was pregnant, it was because she had slept with someone else. It was a betrayal. He was obviously really hurt, but he didn't fly off into a fit of anger and try to cause as much trouble as he possibly could, broadcast it to all and sundry. No, the Bible tells us that quietly he set about to divorce Mary. Remember that although they weren't married, it was a legal commitment, and so it's not like today where people get engaged, put a ring on the finger, and then if they choose to end that engagement, all they do is say it's over, or maybe the girl throws the ring away or something. But there's no legal process involved in becoming engaged or falling out of engagement, only in marriage. So Joseph began, well, as his intention was, he wanted to begin the process of ending that relationship with Mary. So he was an honourable man. And I think that's important. If we're in a crisis, which we can be from time to time, and we want to come out of that, then we have to behave with honour, with dignity, with integrity. Flying off into a rage isn't the answer. Assuming things sometimes isn't the answer, even when they look obvious. It was obvious to Joseph that Mary had slept with someone else. In fact, what other conclusion could he come to? But actually, it wasn't the answer to the situation, was it? Because as we know, it was a different story altogether. But because he had integrity, he kept calm. Keeping calm in a situation, staying reserved, holding back is a good answer to the situation that we find ourselves in. But we can't do it on our own. Joseph couldn't have done it on his own. He couldn't have reached an amicable conclusion on his own. He needed God. And that's when God intervened, because it was revealed to him, revealed to them, what had truly happened. The birth of Jesus that was about to take place. It had all come about through the Holy Spirit. So we need God in there as well. It's not just about us. It's not just about staying calm. It's not just about keeping a cool head in a difficult situation. We need God as well. And God intervened, and because God intervened, Joseph had the strength and the insight to continue in what was a very difficult situation. And it all came good in the end. From a crisis to all working out fine. Because Joseph kept his head. Joseph was a man of integrity. He was a man of honesty. He wanted to do the proper thing even when he believed that Mary had cheated on him. He still wanted to protect her because he loved her. And God, he's the one that truly brought it to a climax, brought it to a positive conclusion. And if we find ourselves in a crisis, like Joseph, we keep calm, keep a cool head, don't behave irrationally, behave in a very logical manner and try to work our way through the situation. That's part of the answer, but it's not the full answer. What we need is God to be involved. We can only go so far, but when God becomes involved, then it does bring us to a satisfactory conclusion. And so we need him. We have to do our bit, so to speak. Joseph played his part. He didn't make a big scene. He didn't make a fuss. He could have messed everything up if he did. He kept calm. He read the situation properly. But then God was involved. And so what turns out to be one of the greatest stories, in fact the greatest story that we could ever witness, started off with a crisis. So next time we're in a crisis situation, or we're going through a difficult period, things aren't going very well, just think back to that story there in Matthew's Gospel. How did Joseph react? It was because he reacted right that it all worked out. But ultimately, it was because God was involved that it all worked out. And with us doing the right thing, with us being open to the intervention of God, no matter what crisis we're in now, it will come good in the end. No matter how dark the days may seem, no matter what sort of storm clouds are over our lives, if we do the right thing and we trust God and we all involve him in the situation, the guarantee is that one day the sun will break through and the sky will be blue and it will be clear and we will come through. But we have to do our bit and we have to involve God and we have to be open to him to take us through into a positive outcome.